We're back, Husker fans, with another episode of Generation Red, the kettle corn of Husker fan podcast, where we try to be sweet, but at times we get salty. It is the 21st anniversary of 9/11. 21 years ago today, the world changed forever. And not to minimize that, but in many ways, as of today, the Huskers football team's world has changed quite a bit too. For a bunch of 18 to 24-year-old kids, their lives are not going to be the same after today, as Scott Frost was fired shortly this morning or later this afternoon after the debacle in, or as I call it, the defensive dingleberry that was the game against Georgia Southern, in which Nebraska lost 45-42 after a valiant effort by the offense. Go figure. Casey Thompson was money for 4 quarters, and just wasn't enough because the defense wasn't. They got robbed, literally, by the Georgia Southern team, who decided they figured out what the weaknesses were, and they just spent the entire game exploiting them, while defensive coordinator Eric Shenander couldn't figure out what the fuck to do about it. Which I'm not exactly sure why Frosthead is the first one on the chopping block. I think Eric Shenander's should be on the same side, but I think Trev Alberts alluded to that a little bit in his press conference earlier today. Wish we had some footage of it, but we don't. We're going to spend the next few minutes kind of recapping the game, and then after that, we will take some time and open it up to you. Question and answer period. Whatever you want to take. If you want to be a part of the stream, you are more than welcome to. I will post a link down in the live chat of this show so that you can jump in on the stream with us. So anyway, while I come up with that link and copy it so I can post it in the chat later, and because I'm terrible at running streams, Scott, why don't you give the folks kind of your overall impressions of last night? We sat next to each other the whole time, and you just kind of had to laugh when you got toward the end of the game, right?
Yes. Husker Nation, we are at a big change for the college football program, as I stated in the comment section of the Go Big Red cast live stream that I believe is still going right now. We are in the desert. We have just entered the desert. We have left the Egyptian enslavement, and we have now entered the desert, and what is supposedly supposed to be a promised land could potentially be 40 years of wandering around, which we've already pretty much done for the last 10 years. It was quite a painful game to watch, but I was weirdly enough serene and calm and just kind of accepted it. Last week, when I was watching the North Dakota game, there really wasn't a sense that we were going to lose that game. The way that I interpreted what I saw in the field was that we were going to win the game. Mm-hmm. And this was not the case this whole game. It felt like before kickoff, there was an atmosphere. The sun was coming out after a pretty much cloudy and rainy day, and I'm with my parents. I'm with my wife. I had just eaten a delicious meal with my wife and a few of her friends, and I truly felt good. And then Boom. Kickoff happened. It just seemed right from the get-go, when we just sputtered out on our first drive, went 3 and out, and then they went down and scored on us. I just knew. I was like, this is it. This is the game. And I think that's why I was able to just remain calm throughout the entire game. And if I wasn't calm, I was excited when we were doing things right. I was really excited to see our offense really take off and see some talents on our offense just once again prove their ability to be good. I've held some reservations with certain individuals up to this point because, we played against North Dakota. We played against Northwestern. Let's see how they continue to do, such as Anthony Grant or a Trey Palmer or Marcus Washington, Casey Thompson, etc. This game really did solidify for me that they are some dogs. They are some good They are some good talent that we've got going for us right now. But alas, when it came down to the final moments of the game, Georgia Southern pulled off the upset. And I did have to laugh at PSC Highlights, one of my favorite YouTube channels for keeping up with what's going on in the college football world, crazy game enders and etc. One of the top comments of the video that was essentially titled, Scott Frost is going to be packing his bags after this. And the top comment, I just had to laugh at it just out of pure, just pure nihilistic behavior. It was like, what was it? Nebraska almost pulled the upset on Georgia Southern. And
yeah.
And I just had to laugh at that because is that really where we're at in our program? I suppose so.
Yeah.
But I want to save a lot of the things that we're going to talk about when it comes to Frost getting fired and Trev's comments and the college football world in general, Reddit, Twitter, everything that's been exploding in the last 6 hours. I'll save that, but I just want to commend Georgia Southern, the Eagles. They came into Memorial Stadium with a thirst for blood. The way that they looked like they knew they were going to win. There wasn't a single player that I could see down on that field, even though it was from a really high up perspective. Mm-hmm. It looked like they knew they were going to win. Their demeanor showed that they were going to win. And they did. Dad, what were your overall impressions of the game that we lost last night? Oh boy. Your microphone is...
Oops, I hit mute by accident when I thought I turned it on. My bad. Sorry,
no
folks.
Worries.
Yeah, my mouth is moving, but no words are coming out, right? My overall impressions are boiled down to one word on the defensive side, unprepared. They looked unprepared. Didn't look like they knew how to line up. Looked like the defensive backfield was constantly shifting around and everybody was pointing and screaming. Seemed like there were way too many Chiefs trying to tell everybody what to do. And then half the time when Georgia Southern would bust off a big play, they just barely get lined up. And we saw it from up there. One of those long runs that, thank God, Buford's really damn fast. Otherwise, that's a long touchdown. We saw it up there. When we don't know X's and O's, we're like, there's a space right there. That's where we're going to run. And sure as shit, that's exactly where they ran the ball. Yeah. So unprepared is what I would say for the defense. Tenacious is the word I would give the offense. You give, holy cow.
This dog is freaking out.
Not my dogs.
Everything.
It's all good, man. It's all good. It's part of the organic. They're pissed off at Scott Frost too. So it's just the offense looked tenacious. I mean, they gave an A+ effort. I mean, would you have guessed that I don't want to bring up the other name, the number 2 with Verduzco on the sidelines coaching him would have been able to engineer a lot of those drives that tied the score over and over again and then eventually took a lead. I don't have a whole lot of confidence. I think Casey's a pretty dang good quarterback, and I think we've got some receivers that are just like their position coach, who is now their head coach, tenacious. Don't give a shit who's playing in front of them. They're going to beat them, and they're going to get the ball. They're going to go get it. I was highly impressed with the receivers' output. I was highly impressed with Anthony Grant. A.J. Allen is going to be a beast. Don't be surprised, folks, if by the end of the season, Anthony Grant might be a little dinged and A.J. Allen's going to be the guy going for 140 a game. And which means you're probably going to see a couple of guys we don't want in the transfer portal go into the transfer portal, but who knows? Unprepared on defense, tenacious on offense. That would be the 2 words I would describe the game yesterday. What do you think? Do you think I'm off my rocker, or do you think that's a pretty good summation?
Nope, I think that's pretty good. I think our offense still has a lot left to be desired, especially once we get into these bigger name games. That'll be when I officially am able to make like a tried and true interpretation of what our offense brings to the table. Right. But I mean, the writing is on the wall with the defense.
Yeah.
Unprepared, physically immature. I just can't express how disappointing it is to see this defensive performance this year. I know I've said this many times, but my bold prediction, which is clearly wrong, absolutely objectively wrong, was that I thought that the defense was going to take a step forward this year.
Yeah. Me too.
Worst defense, like you were saying in the stadium, worst defense we've seen since 2017. It is abysmal. And you can look at our offense and say, I think they can potentially compete with some of these higher tier teams in this upcoming rest of our season. But you look at our defense and you're looking at it like, I feel like we're at rock bottom defensively right now, and it's only going to get worse. Like, there's nothing you can really do to recover from this. Like, there's no amount of coaching that's gonna fix this in a game or two. Maybe potentially in the last stretch of the season, we might see them take some sort of like step forward. But that's really saying something, because they would step forward to still below average performance wise.
Yeah.
And it was so sickening to watch it. Granted, who knows? Maybe North Dakota has a better offense than we think. Maybe Georgia Southern has a better offense than we think with Clay Helton. Maybe this Northwestern team that just lost to Duke, maybe they have a better offense and they just had a bad week, whatever. Those things still have yet to be fully written out in stone. But good God, awful, just awful.
I think Clay Helton might be a little bit better coach than a lot of people are giving him credit for. 2014, after we fired Bo Pelini, we went to the Holiday Bowl, played a Clay Helton coached USC team in the Holiday Bowl, and they beat us. Outshot. It was a shootout, much like this game was, because I don't know what it was, but our defense couldn't figure out how to stop that offense. So Helton's pretty good at scheming things up. And speaking of which, I'm just going to jump to one of the bullet points I had put in our outline for tonight. Garrett Nelson at the podium, and I had to shake my head. I was like, what? Which comes back to my comment on the defense looked unprepared, because Nelson said that Georgia Southern did nothing that they had not practiced for. But the defense had their eyes in the wrong place the whole game, is what he said. That was, in essence, his word. Our eyes were in the wrong place. Well, shoot, if you've practiced against it all week long, how in the hell are your eyes in the wrong place? Unless the coach on the other sideline figured out, hey, this is how we put their eyes in the wrong place, because this is what their tendencies are. And yeah, that's exactly what happened for 4 quarters. There was, other than 2 interceptions and one damn punt, one Georgia Southern punt from Sun Belt Conference, this defense had no answers.
None.
And the only reason we got those 2 INTs, the only reason we got the 2 INTs is because A, Buford's a hell of an athlete, and B, Stephon Wynn actually got a little bit of pressure, and Garrett Nelson got a little bit of pressure, but neither one of them got home. They just forced an interception. Now, I will take that. Guys constantly making a quarterback make bad decisions, but he didn't make a lot of bad decisions the other night. He didn't last night. I mean, he was 37 of 56 for 409 yards passing. That's a pretty good percentage, probably right in that 60% range, 60, 62. While Casey was about the same, 23 for 34, so good Lord. I was at a loss when we were walking out. I just kind of jokingly said to the people around me, well, there's a whole lot of defensive coaches that should be looking for a job tomorrow, because I honestly didn't think Frost should have been fired for last night. But now, looking back, yeah, He's the one that made sure that his buddies came with him from UCF. And I don't know if you caught it last night. I was up till 2:00 in the morning, not because I couldn't sleep, but because there were post-game reaction videos that I watched, live streams. One was from the Go Big Redcast, which was excellent, by the way. If you're watching us right now, please make sure you're subscribed to their YouTube channel, because they did an excellent job recapping the post-game. With Dave and Boomer on the field where they were at the pregame, and then Redcast Rob and Honky back at the hotel. And they did a great job recapping the game. And they kind of said what a lot of us were thinking. The next 2 weeks are going to be really weird. But I don't think any of us thought that the very next day Frost was going to be gone.
No.
And then, of course, Husker Online did one. They were up till 1:00 in the morning doing theirs with Sipple, Sean Callahan, and Robin Washut. And they basically said the same thing. It's only a matter of time. We know it will. We just don't know when. Well, the when happened today, about noon? At least that's when it came across the wire with ESPN. It probably happened 2 hours before then or more. So there we go. So why don't we take a look at the game before we kind of talk about all the minutia and all that crap that comes along with the Frost being fired. Nebraska surrendered 642 yards to the Georgia Southern team. And until last night, Nebraska was 214-0 when scoring over 35 points in Memorial Stadium in their history. First time in Nebraska's history that they scored over 35 points and lost. Is there, other than the sellout streak, is there any shit left that we can screw up? Any streak left that we can get rid of? I mean, somebody's got to have another stat out there that we can figure out how to screw up sometime in the next few weeks or a few years, whatever the case may be. Because a lot of those streaks started dropping, 2002?
Yeah.
Back after Osborne was gone, we started losing some of those streaks. Georgia State had 35 first downs. Nebraska had 33. Georgia State was 9 of 13 on third down. Nebraska, coincidentally, was 9 of 13 on third down, too. So pretty decent efficiency. They were 2 for 2 on fourth down, whereas Nebraska didn't go for it on fourth down at all when they should have with 4th and a foot early in that third quarter, if I remember correctly. And we didn't. Because they hadn't stopped us. We punted, twice? So they really didn't stop us last night. So 257 yards rushing for the Huskers, 5.5 yards per rush, which outpaced Georgia Southern, who only ran it for 233, but they averaged 7.8 yards per rush. So, is what it is. They threw, as I said a minute ago, they threw the ball 56 times, completing it 37 for 409 yards. And Nebraska threw it 34 times, 23 completions, 318 yards, 28 minutes of time of possession for Georgia Southern versus just about 32 for Nebraska. So it was rough. It was rough. And, we did what we did, and we didn't do what we needed to do, bottom line. So thank God your mom came down and told me that my camera had shut off because I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, and I didn't want to interrupt your flow.
You just gotta love organic podcasts like this one because, Anyway, as I said earlier, my impression of especially Casey Thompson, he was absolutely money all game long. Always had to fight from behind. NU's wide receivers were tenacious. Grant needs to be given the ball at least 20 times a game, and Allen at least 10. And who knows, maybe down the road those two will flip-flop. But I was impressed with both of them. Anyway, that's kind of my wrap-up for the game itself. Any of those, and I don't have a game breaker of the game because even though you could say it could be Casey, it could be Marcus Washington, it could be Anthony Grant, it could be any one of those three guys. I didn't pick between the three because the important story here is not really the game. It's about what we're going to talk about in a little bit, which is Frost being gone. And there were no game wreckers for the defense, other than Marquise Buford getting 2 INTs. That's it. Other than that, there really wasn't too many guys that were making a big difference on defense. So that's really, and I don't give 6 craps from Sunday about our over-under at all. I don't care. We got no sacks. Wasn't that our over-under? Was sacks. So we got none. 3 rushing TDs by running backs, and we did do that. Between the quarterback, the quarterback got 3 by himself.
Yeah.
So we both picked the over, I think, or did we pick the number? Because Grant and Allen both had one, if I remember correctly. Casey had 3, and we had 1 touchdown pass. So we picked the number. We still lost, so we're both at -1. And coincidentally, we're -1 coach. Sorry, that just popped into my head, and I had to say it. So I'm going to go ahead. Are we pretty much done? Do you have anything else you want to say about the game itself, or should we just go ahead and move on to talk about Frost and what we think the future holds for Nebraska's coaching staff?
Well, I just wanted to touch one more thing on I want to say one more thing. I just wanted to add onto the running backs. Yeah, I am really excited to see what Anthony Grant and AJ Allen can do in tandem with each other. Looking forward to the rest of the season, because I really think that they are going to be our bread and butter, our go-to type of game plan in order to stay in some of these games, so long as we don't get strung out too early on in any game.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still gonna reserve my overall interpretation of Anthony Grant once he starts competing against better competition. But it looks good. It looks good in our running back room. And I just, fingers crossed that it comes to fruition when we start playing these bigger opponents with better lines and better secondaries and linebackers and all that. But I mean, his shiftiness, you can't deny the eye test of his shiftiness and his elusiveness. And same thing with AJ Allen. Like, I mean, dude had basically 10 yards average every time he touched the ball. So, I mean, shoot, I'll take essentially, if I can do some quick math here, 210 yards rushing a game between 2 running backs. I'll take that. Even if it only translates into 175 yards rushing per game when we get to these bigger name opponents, I'll take that. So that's all. That's the last thing I had to say. I pretty much covered my views on our defense and overall impressions of our offense right at the beginning. So I'll just leave it at that. Let's move on to the next portion here.
Alrighty, so here we are, folks. We have reached a point that none of us thought we would reach. And if you're watching at this point, and if you're on Twitter watching, and you would like to join us in this conversation, you can. I just posted a link in our Facebook page as well as our YouTube live chat area to join the conversation. You're more than welcome to do so. Twitter does not allow you to comment on the video. Unfortunately, Twitter also doesn't allow us to put comments out there for you to find on Twitter. So either find our Facebook page at GenRedPod or look for us on YouTube at GenRedPod as well. Subscribe to the channel, get into the live chat, click the link that puts you into StreamYard with us. You can hang out in the studio and we could talk about what Nebraska is going to do going forward. You only need a smartphone and a set of earbuds. That really is it, because StreamYard does all the rest for you. So as long as you have good data, you can hang out with us right here on this stream and vent your frustration. You can share your sadness at losing Nebraska's favorite son, if you will, as our head coach, or you can just come on and say just how right you were about the fact that Frost wasn't the guy for the last 5 years. I would just ask one thing of all 3 camps: be respectful. Don't call anybody an idiot. Don't call anybody a fool. That's the quickest way to get booted. I was wrong. I thought Frost was the guy. More than willing to admit that I absolutely was wrong. And I was more willing to give him far more grace than most people were. But as a fan, I felt it was more important to be a fan first and to be right second. So here we are, waiting for folks to join us. But your first thoughts, Scott, because I didn't know he got fired. We were doing lunch stuff and we had just gotten home from church, which was really encouraging. I kind of needed that this morning. you know, and you had sent to our family group text that Frost had been fired, according to a screenshot you pulled from ESPN. Right out of the gate, your first gut reaction when you heard that Frost was fired, what hit you first? Was it thank God, or was it, oh God, this sucks, we're going to do this all over again?
It was neither one of those things. My first thought was more so along the lines of, wow, okay, right now. Like
Okay.
you had alluded to earlier with Husker Online and the Go Big Red cast and all of the sports media pundits. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. And that was my thought going to bed last night, and my thought this morning, just scrolling through Twitter, of like, when is it going to happen? Is it going to be after October 1st? And my heart of hearts, my thought was, sooner the better. The sooner the better. There's got to be a booster out there who's willing to cover that 7.5 million difference between now and October 1st. And rumor mill has it is that there was, but obviously Trev didn't want to comment on that with his press conference. But yeah, my initial gut reaction was, okay, it's happened now. And then my second thought was actually relief. It felt like in my past, when I've been in relationships that I knew weren't going to work out, and then it finally came to the point where there was a mutual separation between me and this other person. Yes, there's a heartbreak that immediately comes emotionally, but then there is the logical thought of like, okay, well, now I can move on to something else and focus on what the future holds. And that was kind of how I felt. I felt like a relationship had just ended between a significant other, and it wasn't like
an abusive relationship, so to speak.
Yes, as I have metaphorically explained in the past, it's an abusive relationship as a Husker fan for the last 4 years. I swear it'll change. Oh, he's really good when people aren't around, I swear. Anyway, yeah, and then my third thought was, we're in the desert, like where do we go? What do we do? Who do we hire? There isn't a home run hire per se anymore. Like, yes, you could look at it with potential and say there's a home run hire, but until they're actually the head coach and they actually start coaching games, you're not going to know what product you get from any hire at any point. And that's what I am going to be looking at for the next few months going into November, because I imagine that whoever we're going to hire will probably have a decision made by November. And when that time comes, set my expectations at the bare minimum. Just goodness gracious, like let's humble ourselves as Husker fans and not expect to win national championships and not expect to be what it was in the 90s or the 80s or the 70s. Expect to compete in this new college football landscape that is ever changing all the time. The sands are always shifting with the college football landscape, and very few coaches have been able to prove their ability to shift with the tides. And Nick Saban is a perfect example of that. He's made necessary changes in order to stay relevant in the changing college football landscape. And outside of Nick Saban, you've got like a Dabo Sweeney who is good, but I wouldn't even put him on the tier with Nick Saban. So it's the Pareto distribution. I don't know if you know what the Pareto distribution, what that is exactly, but there's like a law in the universe where essentially there's a bell curve of success. And as you start to go up that bell curve, more success is given to less and less people. And it's kind of like that adage that is talked about in the Bible, where it's like to those who, or what is it, like, to those who are given, or to those who have, more will be given, and to those who have none, you will even
Less.
have less. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a law of the universe. And so can we expect by some law of the universe that we're going to somehow be back to a national championship contending level? No, we shouldn't expect that. But what we should expect is that we're going to hire a competent coach that is going to have a good footing on the college football landscape and can at least move with it. And goodness gracious, let's get back to 8 wins. Like, that's the bar for me. Let's just get some 8-win seasons. Like, let's do that. And yeah, the news came out and I was just relieved. I was relieved because I knew that this was going to happen, and it finally happened. And now we just get to wait. We got to wait and see. What is Mickey Joseph going to do as an interim head coach? What is Mark Whipple going to do being the solo play caller?
Sure.
I mean, Shenander has just got to be shitting in his boots, like, knowing that there isn't a really good end to this story for him, unless for some reason we play Oklahoma and we win Oklahoma, and then we go on a 7-2 run 7-2 run for the rest of the season. Maybe he saves his job, but I doubt it. And
Well,
I mean, Zach Duval, like, that is probably the most unrecognized error in our program that took this long for me to recognize, is how physically unprepared and unconditioned our team is going into any given season. So those are two guys, Eric Shenander and Zach Duval. I'm like, I don't know if you guys are keeping your jobs.
you know, they I don't remember who it was in the press conference. I don't know if you caught it, but somebody asked Trev specifically about whether or not there were any other coaches whose heads, quite frankly, might be on the chopping block. And Trev said, no, my job is done here. Anybody else, any staff changes that happen in the future is going to be up to Mickey if it happens this season. I don't know. I don't know if you want to read too deeply into that, but that tells me that Trev has probably pulled Mickey aside and said, I want you to run the show. But there's a couple of dudes here that have kind of let the program down that maybe or maybe not should stick around while you're here. Just, I don't know. I might be completely reading into that. But
no, I think that is a very fair point to point out. Yes, I did catch that, and I didn't want to read too much into it. The way that, and I don't mean to go off track here, but the way that Trev Alberts handled that press conference was an absolute artwork of words to witness. It was like watching, like, no, I'm not going to use that metaphor because it's good. Actually, yeah, I will. It's like when I'm watching, this is something I like. I like watching hip hop artists, rap artists, specifically rap artists that do freestyles. Shout out Harry Mack. The way that they are able to, on the spot, come up with the most correct possible combination of words off the top of their head, is just unfathomable to witness. And Trev has proven his ability to just be a mason of words, like just an absolute artist. And when it came to that comment about Mickey Joseph, I really respect that Trev Alberts knows his place as an athletic director, and an athletic director is not somebody who micromanages. Same thing with a coach. He doesn't want a coach that micromanages, and he wants to exemplify the leadership qualities that he wants in his guys that are below him. And so that is like textbook good leadership right there. I'm not going to micromanage your staff, and I hope that you will do the same. And giving that baton to Mickey Joseph, And I highly doubt Mickey Joseph. I don't want to say highly doubt. I don't suspect that Mickey Joseph is going to make any immediate decisions, probably even up until the end of the season. I think that it would probably just be the best decision to just let the rest of the season play out as it's going to play out. And if there were to be a change, it would be a behind closed door. Mickey Joseph meets with Trev Alberts and is like, all right, it's week 5 now. I want to start looking into defensive coordinators. We need to start figuring out. But even if that happens, it's still not going to happen. It's not going to happen this season. So, I just high praise to Trev Alberts. Like, I know that when he first got hired, there was a lot of controversy surrounding him, and it was kind of easy to maybe look into it and be like, oh yeah, there's some red flags there. But when I look at Trev Alberts and his history, from what I can tell, is that he is a man of his word, and that he's willing to do things. He's willing to do things that are right, even if they aren't expedient and immediately satisfying. And I honestly think, like, could have he chosen to fire Frost after last year? Absolutely. But no, he wanted to give this guy an 8th chance, because it wasn't even a second chance after last season. It was you get unreasonable amounts of grace at this point. And Trev did that. So props to Trev and his ability to conduct himself as our athletic director thus far. I mean, 15 games under his belt as an athletic director for our football program. It has the potential to be good down the road, but we will see.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Got a few more viewers now. Please, if you are watching us right now, we'd like to hear what you have to say about this topic in our comments section. Hey, one of our guests from there he is, right there. Hey, bro, what's up, Mikey? Hey, dude, if you're hanging out, you want to talk about Scott Frost being fired today after the Georgia Southern game, hop on your phone, man. The link is in the comments section on YouTube. You can hop on with us, Mike, and anybody else that's watching. If you want to come hop on with us too, please just need a cell phone and a pair of earbuds. Hop on the stream with us, and we'll talk about all things Scott Frost, or what's happening after Scott Frost, namely the next coach. But before we go there, I would like to also comment on how Trev Alberts handled the press conference today. Number one, because it seemed like there were about 3 or 4 reporters in the room that their whole job was try to get Trev Alberts to admit that he regrets keeping Scott Frost going into 2022.
Yep.
Which to me is absolute chicken shit journalism. You're not getting a story for now. You're trying to get a story that you wanted in the past. You're trying to get an athletic director to confirm shit you wrote back in the past, going, I don't get why Trev Alberts decided to keep Scott Frost around for another year. We saw a lot of those stories. So to me, that's chicken crap journalism. I hate it. I hate when people do that. So I'm glad that he kind of shut that down pretty quickly and just said, hey, wouldn't be fair to Scott Frost for me to talk badly about this, that, or the other. He was extremely magnanimous. I was also very impressed with the fact that while I love the fact that Mike Riley came up and talked to the reporters after he got fired, pretty stand-up guy for doing that. I think it was even more stand-up that after talking with Trev and knowing that he's not coming back as the coach come next week, Trev let him go in the locker room, talk to his boys. And Trev announced that, their coach was not coming back in front of Scott, in front of the team. Stand up on both of their parts, and then left the room to allow Scott to have that time to say goodbye. Breaks my heart. But at the same time, completely stand-up move by both of them. So that meant a lot to me. And call me an old sentimental fool. I appreciate one Husker covering the back of another Husker who didn't quite meet the standard, because that's really what we're at here, right? We know what the Husker standard is. Scott knows what the Husker standard is, and he knew he didn't meet it. And Trev said that. Scott was very, very cordial and appreciative and whatnot in their meeting, knowing full well that this was coming. So I appreciate how both of those guys handled it. And for me, the hard part is not losing Scott as a coach. The hard part is knowing that he's got a young family at home, that he's got to figure out how to raise his kids, knowing full well that he couldn't make it work at his alma mater, the place that he moved them most of the way across the country to take this job. So I appreciate how Trev handled it. I appreciate how Scott handled it. Would have been really cool to kind of hear from him. At the same time, I don't blame him for not wanting to say anything. I appreciate the fact that Mickey Joseph is, from what I understand, according to some of the things Trev said, the practices are going to be different.
Yep.
So maybe some coaches are going to be like, no, we got to be different now out here on the field, because this little short dude with a pissed off attitude ain't going to take any crap. Because there's no doubt that Mickey does not take any crap. I mean, Xavier Betts is doing what? Going to school? That's it now, because Mickey's not going to take any crap.
Did you hear the locker room, the reported locker room reception for Mickey Joseph being announced as the interim?
The only thing I heard was what Trev said, that he made some poignant comments to the team that were well received. That's the only thing I've heard as far as the locker room reception, because I haven't been on Twitter or anywhere on social media after the announcement. After about 2 hours after the announcement, I got down to getting all this crap set up, and it takes a lot of work to make me look good. Just saying, folks. But no, I didn't see. Was there any scuttlebutt out there about that?
Yes, if I remember correctly, which is very unlikely. Sipple had reported that the reception in the locker room when it was announced that Mickey Joseph was going to be taking the interim head coaching position, that the locker room erupted with cheers, and that there was a lot of hype, that there were a lot of guys that were very excited about it. And that really speaks to the character of Mickey Joseph. Doesn't seem like a guy who takes any shit. He seems like a guy who is very firm and very fair, and is what I would consider a pro, I can't think of the word. He would be like an archetypal dad. He's got that firm but fair kind of dad mentality. Is going to bust your balls when necessary, but is going to pat you on the back when necessary. And so knowing that, well, not necessarily knowing, but hearing that the locker room erupted with joy that he was going to be their dad, that kind of speaks highly of more highly of Mickey Joseph's character. And potentially we might see a shift in culture the rest of this season. But who knows?
He's got a 9-game audition. He's never been a head coach in his life. So there's a lot of people out there going, well, does Mickey have a shot? And Trev was even asked, is Mickey going to be in consideration? And Trev, to his credit, said, I told Mickey right from the get-go, this is going to be a nationwide search. And depending on how things go by the end of the season, your name could be involved. And I thought that was pretty stand-up. Yeah, hearing that the locker room erupted means that they love Mickey. I think they love Scott, too. No doubt in my mind they love Scott. But I think they absolutely love Mickey and what he's about. And that's pretty cool. Here you go. I don't know if the Go Big Redcast talked about it on their live stream. Unfortunately, sorry, Honky and guys, I didn't get to see it. I was too busy prepping myself and didn't do a whole lot of prep anyway. But did you? Dang it! I don't know where I was going with that thought. My bad. Brain cramped, completely cramped. Storyline. That's where I was going. Do you know who the football team was that Mickey Joseph was playing against that basically ended his college football career at Nebraska?
Oklahoma.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now,
Tale of
maybe
Fates.
everybody's going to make that a storyline. Mickey probably won't because he's not that kind of guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't mention it in the locker room or maybe posted an article up in somebody's locker here and there to let them know that, yeah, I used to play here. I used to play here and I was good. And I was good until them bastards across the line from you made sure I couldn't be good anymore, which would have been, I don't remember if that was right. Yeah, it would have been. He and Casey Thompson's dad knew each other. They were buddies.
Wow.
So you got all that figured in too. So don't know what that means. I don't know, but I think it's a storyline to consider that this is going to mean something to Mickey playing OU this next week against a head coach with his first gig as a head coach, much like Mickey. So he's got 2 more games experience, but that's it. So, but we'll talk about OU later on this week, folks. I can't give you a day when we're going to sit down and specifically take a look at the OU game. We're not going to do that tonight. Tonight, we're really kind of focused in on, the Georgia Southern game that happened last night and the repercussions, which is obviously that the prodigal son won't get to return, at least to the football program anyway, in any kind of official capacity. He's now done. The father has removed the ring from his finger, like the story said. We should talk about possible coaches. I know you've got a nice list here. 2 or 3 of them definitely have got my interest.
I just wanted to preface that this is all speculation. I have absolutely zero confidence, and I have no interpretation of what any of these guys mean for our program moving forward, and that regardless of how much we want to chitter and chatter about it, we are just specks of dust. We mean nothing. And that goes for anybody that isn't sitting in the athletic director's office at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We can speculate all we want, but ultimately we have absolutely no weight in the decision-making when it comes to this. So just know that as we go into this discussion, that there is no official capacity at which we hold any weight, which is assumed, but I get so sick and tired of people talking about possible coach hires as if their opinion holds any weight at all.
Right.
So I just wanted to humbly, as best as I can, with the most ego possible, to make it as ironic as possible. This doesn't mean shit. So let's this is a little list that I compiled that I've just seen floating around Twitter. A few names I was already, before this game and before the inception of Frost getting fired, before any of this happened, there were obviously these names floating around even last season. And actually looking at pretty much all these names, aside from maybe 3 of them that I've got written down, all of them had been mentioned since last year. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Out of this list, here we go. I'm just going to read them off really quickly, just so that the audience can,
this list is for entertainment purposes only. They mean nothing whatsoever to any kind of future of Nebraska football. And God knows Trev Alberts would tell you to shut the fuck up if you dared to mention any of these names. But here you go. These are the names we've got.
I just wanted to name them off so that when I ask this next question, it's at least kind of out in the air already. So I've got Luke Fickell with Cincinnati, Dave Aranda with Baylor, Matt Campbell with Iowa State, Mark Stoops with Kentucky, Matt Rule with the Carolina Panthers, Bill O'Brien with Alabama, Lance Leipold with Kansas, Gary Patterson with Texas, Chris Kleiman from Kansas State, Deion Sanders with Jackson State, Jacksonville State, whatever, JSU, and an Urban Meyer penis. So I've got all of those names. There's probably some that are obviously floating around as well, but these are just the ones that I just shit out really quick. Out of all of those names, what's the first one out of that list that intrigues you the most?
It's a tie between two, and I know I should probably pick one, but it's a tie between two. Namely because both of these guys know the Big Ten. Number one, in no particular order, would be Bill O'Brien at Alabama. This guy went into a situation at Penn State after the Jerry Sandusky crap and Joe Paterno resigns, whatever what hell it was, and then 3 months later dies because for some reason, not being the coach at Penn State, decided to kill him. Sad. It's sad to say, but that dude was a coach for half a century, and he didn't know that his defensive coordinator was diddling kids, but whatever. But Bill O'Brien came into a situation at Penn State, which was like 2 notches below the death penalty that SMU got. If you've not seen the documentary, The Pony Express, on the 30 for 30 for ESPN, go watch it, because they got hammered with literally the death penalty for being able to compete in Division I college football. Penn State got pretty close to the same thing, and Bill O'Brien still got those sons of guns to a bowl. I think every year that he coached. So that is some serious coaching. Granted, we beat him twice, I think. Maybe only once. I think it was only once, because we only played him twice. Kind of during that era. There was the game that we played in Penn State right after Paterno was fired, and they had their interim coach, and the interim coach wanted Pelini to come over and kneel next to him while Ron Brown led the pregame prayer for both teams and all that good stuff. And then the next year in Lincoln, Bill O'Brien, I think that was his first year as the full-time head coach at Penn State, and it was all we could do to beat him. With a depleted roster, he couldn't recruit but 10, 15 guys a year, I think was all he could get for the first two, or all Penn State could get for the first 2 or 3 years after the scandal. That's some coaching. The dude can coach. Had a rough go in the NFL at the Houston Texans. I get it. And he probably brings a little bit of baggage, but damn it, he's the offensive coordinator at Alabama, and they figured out how to beat Texas yesterday when it looked like they weren't going to do it. But when it mattered, he figured it out, called the plays that worked. So Bill O'Brien for me, and right next to him would be Dave Aranda at Baylor, because he was that defensive coordinator at Wisconsin that just, other than Jim Leonard, who's at Wisconsin now, I don't think there's been a better defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, or somebody who knows the Big Ten better than that guy. So those are the 2 names right off the gate that grab my attention. I would take, in no particular order, either of those 2, I would be really, really happy with the hire. So I don't know. What do you think? What names pop out to you?
Shoot, I asked that question to you, not actually really having a substantial answer for myself. I was just curious, more so what you thought, since you kind of are a little bit more plugged in with the history of some of these coaches, which I am not. I would say that the most intriguing name that pops out to me right away is Luke Fickell. Granted, when he was the interim at Ohio State, he went 6-7, and spent a very long time at Ohio State. Let me see. He spent basically from 2002 all the way up until 2016. He's been at Ohio State. So he knows the Big Ten, and that would be probably my first initial want for him, is that he knows the Big Ten, and of course he knows what it means to be the creme de la creme of the Big Ten, which is Ohio State.
Sure.
With his little blemish of being the interim, but I mean, what can you expect as an interim head coach? As much as I love Mickey Joseph, I'm not expecting much from him, which is probably a good thing. I highly recommend everybody do that. But anyway, I mean, he knows what it takes to win in the Big Ten, and I would love nothing more than to see him find his way to Lincoln, Nebraska,
Mhm.
and get a second shot at a head coaching job. But obviously the red flag there is that this would be his first tried and true head coaching gig. First head coaching gig in a Power 5 conference. Granted, Cincinnati's moving to the Big 12, so technically they're a Power 5 to be. But I mean, I think the Big 12, this is just my opinion, I think the Big 12 is bottom of the barrel when it comes to Power 5, with probably a tie between the Pac-12 right now. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Pac-12 and the Big 12 just like to battle each other for who's going to be bottom of the barrel for Power 5 conferences. And if it wasn't for Clemson, then it would be the ACC. But that's just me being a dickhead. So, I would say Luke Fickell. And I know that there was something that Lars Anderson posted on Twitter saying that he's got an inside source saying that Matt Campbell is a potential hire or whatever.
He just beat Iowa for the first time.
Yeah,
because Iowa completely sucks.
Yeah, he didn't.
Offense. That's the only reason he beat them. They beat themselves.
Yes,
yeah.
I would not. I would take a Matt Campbell because I know that he would probably get us up to 7 or 8 wins in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not his first year here, but there's a competent coach right there. I don't think that Matt Campbell is an incompetent coach. I mean, he brought Iowa State to national relevancy. Like, you don't just do that with a set of incompetent personality traits. Like,
well, he knows the Purdy family too. Chubba's older brother played for him for 4 years, so he knows the Purdy family.
But one of the things that I did have to say is that, yes, it's rumor mill, comes from Lars Anderson, but Lars Anderson is undefeated with coaching hires for Nebraska, predicting coaching hires. He predicted Fred Hoiberg, and that came true. He predicted Will Bolt, and that came true. And he predicted Scott Frost, and that came true. Long before it became a national media talking point. He was kind of the breaking inside source for those things. So I don't know who in the athletic department that he knows that is an absolute snitch, but whoever it is, whatever party that those people are affiliated with, I mean, is he going to go undefeated again and be 4 for 4? I don't know. But history kind of shows that he might possibly be onto something with that.
I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just me, knowing Trev being a black shirt at heart, he's going to be looking for that defensive-minded coach, which Matt Campbell is definitely more of a defensive, because you cannot argue that Iowa State's defense is way better since he's been in control of that program than it ever has been before. Then again, defending Iowa is not all that difficult. Just make sure the wide receivers aren't open. God knows if they are, even if they are, the quarterback can't hit them. But yeah, Matt Campbell would be a good. I think Mark Stoops would be a good choice. But I don't think he leaves Kentucky.
No, why would he leave? He's got a really good contract there.
He's got a great contract, and I don't think they're going to let him leave. I think they're going to make sure they pay him what he needs to get paid if somebody comes calling. Matt Rule made a lot of stuff happen at Vanderbilt, and then he went to Baylor and kind of filled the gap between himself. I think he was only there a year. Between Art Briles and Dave Aranda was when Matt Rule was there, and they went to a bowl. I think they won 9 or 10 games that year. He wouldn't be a bad choice. I'm more concerned. Excuse me. Goodness.
Yeah, you're having a good time over there.
Too much good food. Even on my diet, your mom made something that was diet approved, and I ate a lot of it.
Yeah, no, he was Baylor's head coach for 3 years. I was gonna say I felt like he was there a little bit longer. Let me see real quick. Yeah, so he was there and he went 11-1, or he went 1-11 his first season. Then he got them to, just above 500 and got them to 7-6, which they were 6-6, and then they got a win in their bowl game. But then he went 11-3 and lost in the Sugar Bowl. But I mean, he turned that program around and set
I wouldn't have a problem with Matt Rule. I really wouldn't. The guy can coach, and maybe he's not cut out for the NFL. Which, geez, Louise, Urban Meyer obviously was not cut out for the NFL. He liked the NFL strip clubs, obviously, but definitely was not cut out for coaching. If I'm going to eliminate any names off of this list, the first name I'm eliminating is Urban Meyer, because there's no freaking way on planet Earth that Trev Albert's moral compass would even consider an individual like Urban Meyer. Yeah, granted, we're going to get more W's on our record, but there's a difference between coaching for Nebraska and coaching for Ohio State. I don't think Trev is going to want to get the W's while also taking a hit in the public relations department. Deion Sanders.
We've already got enough of that.
Deion's waiting to go back to Florida State. He's waiting for Norvell to fail at Florida State so he can go there and make sure that all the NIL money that he's getting at Jacksonville State goes with him to Florida State to buy all the best players in Florida.
No, he would be what would be considered a resume coach. He would just come to Nebraska for a few years, build his resume, and then deuce out. He wouldn't want to be here for the long haul.
Now,
Deion Sanders, that is.
An interesting name you've got on the list, simply because we have one or two of his players here right now, is Gary Patterson. I wouldn't consider Chris Kleiman. I think he's a good coach for Kansas, but other than beating Texas last year, whatever. And they had to do that in a shootout with 7 overtimes. Gary Patterson, which a lot of people were saying when Bo Pelini was fired, we should have been talking to Gary Patterson.
Yeah, I remember that name.
He had hellacious defenses at TCU. That's why they were so good, was because their defenses were so good. He coached O'Shawn Mathis. He was part of the recruitment process for A.J. Allen before he got fired. So that's an intriguing name, simply because defense is where our team, at least as of last week, or the entire season, has been lacking, because offense has actually been pretty freaking good. So Gary Patterson is definitely intriguing to me. Matt Rule's intriguing. Mark Stoops, I don't think that happens. I think the most realistic choices would be Dave Aranda, Luke Fickell, Bill O'Brien, and Gary Patterson. I think those are the 4 most realistic choices on the list. What do you think?
I think you're pretty much right. As much as it seems like, just from a basic observation point, that I see Matt Campbell's name more and more often than not, I should say. I would like to see, a Luke Fickell, a Dave Aranda, Bill O'Brien, Gary Patterson.
The only reason I would say that Luke Fickell is kind of out of the realm of possibility is because I think he's waiting for Ryan Day to go to the NFL. And I know we've heard that on many podcasts. I know I have.
I've heard it
many times. I think there's some truth to that Ryan Day was kind of courted by the NFL last year. They're kind of waiting to see what Ohio State does this year. If they win 10, 11 games, I think Day is off to the NFL and Fickell goes to Ohio State. So there's really no reason to even consider that name on the list, in my opinion, because I think Day probably wins at least 11 this year and probably hops off to the NFL for a lot of freaking, because hey, he might fail like Urban Meyer royally, but he's going to be set up for life.
Yes.
Who doesn't want to be set up for life, right? So, Dave Aranda, Bill O'Brien, because Bill O'Brien's in that, that same category of coaches that a lot of coaches have been. The guy that damn near beat Nick Saban yesterday was his offensive coordinator at Alabama 3 years ago, something like that. Steve Sarkisian. So Bill O'Brien is kind of in that, as Schmitty says on Hail Varsity, the Nick Saban rehabilitation program for coaches. And who knows, maybe Bill O'Brien shows up at Nebraska and Scott Frost goes to Alabama to coordinate Nick Saban's offense. You never know. You absolutely never know. But
yeah, I
anyway.
want to find if there were any coach that I would want to have. I don't care what their name is or where they come from. I just want them to have the kind of vision that, let's say, a Nick Saban had about Alabama. Because after Paul Bear Bryant, I mean, the best coaching record that you could find was in the 80s and 90s between Bill Curry and Gene Stallings, where they were able to get around a 700 winning loss record. And then they dropped down pretty poorly to a 500, a 600 record, a 300 record. And then Nick Saban revived the program. You know, the way that I view, and this is obviously Nebraska bias, the way that I view Nebraska's blue blood history is that, yes, in the current day and age, Nebraska has fallen out of national championship contending relevancy. That's just a given. But you just don't lose that blue blood. You don't lose that right away. That takes lots and lots of time. It would take probably 4 or 5 decades of irrelevancy for Nebraska to really lose their blue blood chip.
Right.
And if there's any coach that I would want a Nick Saban to look at this program and see it as the final destination. And then when there's success, it is the final destination. Because what I see in a lot of places like Reddit and even Twitter and whatnot is this general consensus that Nebraska has found itself being a in transit program, that you go to Nebraska so you can build your resume so that you can go somewhere else. And I just don't think that is the case. I think that Nebraska is a final destination place for somebody to get to. And it'll probably take a decade. It's going to probably take a decade. I don't think that it's going to be like a Nick Saban where he just shows up and then within 2 years he is on the national stage ready to compete for a national championship. I don't see that happening necessarily, simply because of the context of Nick Saban went to the SEC, where he's able to get those Alabama and those Georgia recruits and fish over at Texas and Florida and just start grabbing 5 stars here and there. I don't see that, but what I do see is a potential landing spot for any coach worth their salt to be like, this is where I want to retire, and I'm going to be here for the long haul. I don't care about the NFL. I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to be here until the day I'm ready to go buy a ranch somewhere and spend my final years looking at sunsets in some beautiful multi-million-dollar ranch. That's what I think. That's what I think the final destination for any coach going to Nebraska with their mindset should be, is that this is where I'm going to finish my career, in a good way, that is. But yeah, that's what I would like to see out of a coaching hire. I don't know if we're going to get it this round. Out of all of these coaches, do I see them, with my minimum knowledge, as being like the final destination coach? I honestly don't think so. But if they could build our program to a point in the next, 6 to 9 years where we're sitting at a nice 750, 800 record, and somebody who is like just the actual home run hire, that would be great. Yeah, that's probably the best case, most likely scenario that I could see.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. We've all seen it. There's all kinds of fans out there that are like, okay, we've done the Nebraska way too many times now. Let's not hire a Nebraska guy. Let's hire somebody that doesn't have any connection to the program, all that good stuff, because maybe they'll stick around for a while. Well, maybe not. We need to find that guy that sees this program as a destination hire, not a stepping stone. And unfortunately, what Nebraska has become, based on the way we've played, is kind of a stepping stone. And that sucks. So maybe what Nebraska and what Trev needs to look for is that guy like a Dave Aranda that's made Baylor good, and he's ready to step up and make somebody else even better to come to Nebraska. And because he knows Wisconsin, he's going to look at Wisconsin and go, I know how to beat those guys because I was those guys. Or maybe he needs to look at a Bill O'Brien who goes, I know how to build something up from the ashes of something that was really bad. And who knows, maybe there's another name that's not even on your list that Trev has in his back pocket that we don't even know about. Yep. What I do know is I have a lot more confidence in Trev Alberts making this next hire because he is a Nebraska guy. He's going to look for somebody who has those Nebraska type qualities, whether it's a Nebraska legacy or not. He's going to look for somebody who embodies what Nebraska is all about, which is win the right way, play hard, and without a doubt, don't embarrass yourselves on the field.
Or as Trev said himself, he wants to find a guy who hates losing more than loves winning.
He likes winning. Yep. And
Yeah.
then he followed that up by saying, not that that's what Scott, that would be unfair to Scott for me to say it, to imply that he didn't hate losing more than he loved winning. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to find that guy that feels the same way Scott did, because I have absolutely no doubt that Scott Frost poured 100% of who he is as a person into making Nebraska be what he thought it could be. I have no doubt in my mind. It just didn't work. Didn't work. So anyway, dude, I think we've covered about everything we can cover. Nobody else decided to join us, which was fine, because you know what? This was a good therapy session for me, kind of like last week was and kind of like the week before was. So, and here we are looking directly into the future with a short kid from Louisiana fixing to drop a bunch of F-bombs in practice.
Oh, yeah.
Come next week. So, God bless you, Mickey. We are so glad you're our interim coach. If you even happen to see this or anybody tells you about us talking about you, we are completely 100% in your corner. Man. Cannot wait to see what you guys come up with against Oklahoma next week.
We're going to be there.
Cannot wait. Yep. You and I are going to be there. Are we going to be up in 600 again? Is that the plan?
I think we're in the nosebleeds, the other nosebleeds. You finish off your thought, and I will confirm or deny. No. Yes, we are going to this game. As much as I don't want to go to this game because I'm afraid of the pain that will ensue. I just can't. I can't not go to something like a Oklahoma game. Oh yeah, we are in the 600 sections. Nice.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, it's the Wisconsin game that we're all the way at the tippy top. That's what it was.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
In 600 or one of the end zones?
One of the end zones. We're up in the top corner, road 96, right up against the wall, which is nice because then we get we don't have knees digging into our back.
Yep. You can stand up and sit up against the wall. Yep, that'll work.
Yep. Yeah,
that'll work. Awesome.
No, we'll be in 613 for the OU game, and yeah, Mickey, like we'll probably end up cutting this into a very specific section on YouTube. We wish nothing but the best for you. I would love nothing more than to see you build the rapport for these next 9 games to earn yourself a head coaching gig here.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
I don't know what fire you need to set underneath the defense when that isn't necessarily your realm of expertise, but my goodness, like the sky's the limit for you, dude. Like go for it. Knock us out of our socks, man. Like go win 7 or 8 of these next 9 games and just blow me away. Like I look forward to it if that's what you do.
I remember watching Mickey play right before Tommy Frazier showed up on campus. And the word on Mickey Joseph was, well, he's got small hands, can't really grip the football like everybody else in the quarterback room can, but damn, that dude is a gamer. And he was. Every year he played here, he was a gamer. And I don't think Mickey forgot about that game against Oklahoma. I think it's stuck in his head, and I think he's going to use it for a little bit of motivation for his team. Who knows what that gets them, but Coach Joseph, dude, I can't be more in your corner than I am right now. So glad that you got that. There's a reason, and I think I said it in a post on Twitter. Somebody had asked why Shenander wasn't named the interim head coach, and I was like, well, he wasn't given the associate head coach title like Mickey was. And I think that was on purpose. I don't know if it was Scott Frost choosing, but I think Trev was like, this guy, you need to give him that tag just in case days like today come along. And they did. So, and he's the head coach for now. And Husker Nation, myself, Scott, we're all completely behind you, Mickey, and we cannot wait to see what you have in store for Oklahoma next week. So for now, folks, we really appreciate you watching. We are still involved in the promotion for the Team Jack Foundation's 10th annual Radiothon coming up on September 29th from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you want more information about the Radiothon, please go to teamjackfoundation.org to find out about the Radiothon or to donate. Just $20 a month will help go a long way to defeating pediatric brain cancer in young children. Anyway, to follow us, you can find us at GenRedPod at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Generation Red on your favorite podcast app. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share this show, as well as leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast app. It helps other folks find us. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video. Helps folks find it. And until next time, he's Scott, I'm Ken. Together we are the Generation Red podcast, and never thought we would do a show like this where we're not talking about Scott Frost as head coach, but here we are. And no matter what anybody tells you, there is absolutely no place like Nebraska.
Iowa's corn sucks and go Big Red.
I left you just enough room to do that because they're just not living rent-free in my head anymore, because their corn doesn't just suck. Their offense sucks. I think we all saw that the last couple Saturdays. At least ours scores points.
Oh, God.
All right, later, folks. We'll see you next week.